afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fizell, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home on IC Radio. In Christ Radio, your source for news and entertainment. You can also find us on television, channel 182. I didn't tell you this, Jimmy. You're on television, channel
Great.
182 on Charter Communications, and that's local North Alabama. You can also find us worldwide on Abundance TV, which is found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And so Rob Patz, who's actually the owner of Abundant TV, was on the show just a few days ago. And so mentioned something pretty awesome. We're going to be in Australia. There is a Christian, it's kind of like a satellite dish, much bigger than Dish or anything like that. And so they've invited the station to be there as well. So that's going to mean about 1 million plus more listeners. And we're really happy about that happening. So thank you, Rob, for everything you've done to make all this stuff happen. And I know you're a hard worker. And it's about time to get you back on the show again. Okay, I have, we have great guests on this show, and that's why we're popular. And just wanted to mention a guy that we've been playing his music. His name is Jimmy Reno, and he's with us right now. Jimmy, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here with you guys.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jimmy and I found out we got a lot of stuff in common. We're both Texas.
Yeah. Yep. Both
Yeah.
Alabama.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's another thing.
hmm
Part of Alabama. What part of Alabama are you in?
I live in Aniana in Blount County.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
north central
And you know
part of the
something? I
states.
know you're from Aniana because of the way you pronounce it. I get tickled at news people.
Yeah.
They'll talk about something happening and they'll say, Oni Anna.
Yeah. Or one oncha. I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a little place I'm in Geraldine. I don't know if you've heard of
Oh
Geraldine.
yeah, I
Oh,
have. Mark 209's piano player Josh Pope. He lives in
yeah.
Geraldine.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had Vestal Goodman just up the road. And, so yeah, we're pretty well
Yeah.
known. And also Pat Upton, who was with the Spiral Staircase way before you were even born. He had this show, it's a song. It was a hit. He was on American Bandstand and everything. We were so proud of Pat. And the song was I Love You More Today Than Yesterday, but Not As Much As Tomorrow. That was
Oh, I
Pat's.
know the song. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So rough
I
from
didn't
right.
immediately recognize his name, but I definitely know the song.
Oh, yeah, right here in
Yeah.
this neck of the woods. So we're real proud to have you on the show with us as well.
Thank you.
So we play your songs, we play your music. And so you've been getting requested a lot here lately, Jimmy. So
Oh, awesome. Yeah,
yeah,
everybody that requests, I greatly appreciate it. Um, a lot of the songs I write most of my songs, um, and when the Lord gives them to me, my prayer is that the lyrics, that it touches people's lives or it reaches somebody, has an impact on them. And without stations like yours playing the music, there's no way it can reach anybody. So I'm very grateful for everything that you guys do as well.
well, I'm going to tell you something. Really, we're not the boss around here, the listeners are.
Yeah.
And so what happens, hey, it takes a big load off of me and Phil.
Yep.
So so what happens is we've got it set up. It's kind of the promoters, we have promoters and that kind of thing too. But
hmm
really it's listeners. And so what happens is the listeners will go on the website, and that's icradio.media, and they'll search for your name and they'll request music. So at the end of the week, we do the top 30 requested songs. And so feel really proud because our listeners are the best that there are out there. So let's talk about your music. I'm so anxious. I'm always anxious to talk with songwriters. I just think it's a gift from God. And I mean, it's not a gift that was given to me at all.
you know, for years, I tried to write. I've been singing since I was 4 years old. I started singing in church. My dad would stand me in the chair up to the microphone so I could reach it, and he'd play the guitar and I would sing. So singing is all I've ever known. And a few times over the years, I would try writing, and I would write something, then I would kind of read back over it, and I think, that's absolutely terrible. I'm not going to do anything with that. So I kind of put that on the back burner for a long time. And I was with Mark 209 previously before this. I had been with those guys in another group, and then we formed Mark 209. And after, I was with them a total of 6 or 7 years. But one morning the Lord woke me up, and He was giving me a dream, and the song was it was lyrics, and it was to the song "Breaking Free." which is my current release. I just went out September the 6th. And um, I, I heard the melody for the chorus. And I had the lyrics in my head. It woke me up. I could not go back to sleep, so I started writing them. And then after I wrote that song, the more just kept coming. And I write with my cousin. So, after I got the chorus and the melody, I sent it to him to help with verses. And, then we ended up co-writing. And once we had so many songs written, I started praying, asking the Lord, Lord, what do you want me to do with these songs? I thought maybe I'll use them as a demo to see if other people want to record them. And it just kind of organically evolved into the Lord leading me into going into the solo ministry, which honestly, I've always loved being with groups. I love harmony, and I never saw myself as a soloist, nor did I have any goals on being a soloist. Um, but sometimes God moves us into areas that are outside of our typical comfort zone, which for me this was. But when the Lord told me to go, I prayed and I prayed, and like a lot of people, I kept saying, God, are you sure? Are you sure you want me to do
And
this?
God loves it when we say that. So I say
Yeah,
that all the time. God, are you
yeah,
really sure?
yeah, yeah. Am I hearing you right? So, but once I got that peace about it, and I knew that's what I was supposed to do, um, I moved forward and been writing steadily since. So
That's
that
pretty amazing.
it,
It,
it
it-
it it is. God is absolutely amazing.
do you play
So,
any musical instruments?
well, I play a trombone. um, I played steel guitar for years, taking lessons. I haven't played it in a long time, and I've never played it professionally. Those are two instruments that I know how to.
Mhm. You and I are techies. We talked about that at the
Yeah,
start of the show. And I mean, I love technology. I mean, it's really made life a lot easier for me. COVID hit, and a lot of us would have just been out of business without those resources. So,
yeah.
how did you bounce back from COVID? I know a lot of people, and they're bouncing back, by the way, and people are so eager to get out and listen to you. I think it's amazing.
COVID, when that hit, at the time I was still with Mark 209, and our bookings were just being, of course, I mean, they were being canceled because of, either COVID being in the churches, or the churches were afraid that it would come in. And
Mhm.
so, most of our dates for that year were canceled. We did very few dates compared to normal. So I had suddenly for the first time in years, I had a lot of time at home, which I haven't had in a very long time. And at first it was nice because I was able to catch up with family and spend more time with my kids. I have three grandkids, and I started enjoying time with them. It was during that period um, that we were home. That's when God really started dealing with me on making the solo album and going in that direction. Um, so for me, that time off and that year off, basically, and we did sing some, just not like normal. And but that time off, God used that, and that's where I realized that what He was calling me to do and what He wanted me to do. And so for me, that was a transitional period.
Mhm.
And then things are better now, thankfully, with COVID, and a lot of the places are open again. But during that time that I was off, that's when I was writing, I was planning what I was going to do, and so that kind of gave me time to get things going solo wise. So that's how that impacted me.
Yeah, we had the church, online, Facebook Live, and that
Hmm.
kind of thing. And it doesn't. I mean, I can do it when I have to, but I'd rather not because my mind wanders.
Yeah,
Because I'd be sitting there watching the service and then look up, go, "Ooh, there's a spider web." I mean,
yeah,
it's
I know.
just, it's
It
kind
is.
of,
Yeah.
it was tough on me. So I'm glad everything opened back up again.
Oh gosh, I am too. Yeah, that was a rough period,
But you got to do what you
especially in
got
this
to do.
business. Yeah.
Got to do what you got to
Yeah.
do. And I'm really glad I had shared this with you earlier. I had never heard of Zoom until all
Yeah.
this stuff
It's
happened.
all this hit. Yeah.
Yeah, one of my friends who's in television broadcasting said, Donald, you really need to get into Zoom. And I said, what's a Zoom? And then it really saved the business, I think, and I think what was meant, because sometimes I think things are meant to harm us, and you just gotta, open it up and sit still and listen, you know,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
let it work. So then that's what you did. You just sat
Yeah.
still and listened. But I think we all kind of needed some time off. I think we were all just going at such a fast pace that we weren't able to make things accomplished. And
Yeah.
I've had a lot more accomplishments since then.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it affected a lot of people that way. I had a conversation with Ernie Haas, and he was telling me during that period he was able to, to reevaluate things, spend time with his family. Um, he found it much the same way. And then during that period, God gave him songs to write, which he typically didn't do a lot of, but he did a lot of writing during that period. And so I think God used that period for a lot of people for them to grow, to be a season of change or transition.
Well, I kept thinking about a boss I had a long time ago. I was 25 years old and I had my first management job with this huge cosmetic company. They're headquartered out of New York, one of Donald Trump's
Hmm.
buildings, by the way.
Oh,
And
well,
so I remember my boss. My boss was, she said, "All right, you're young, you got a son." And she, over and over and over, she would say, God's got to come first. And I felt I was her trouble child. She had to call me in a lot because I was overdoing it. And so she said, "You're going to burn out." And I said, "But I'm doing my job." And she said, "Yeah, but God's got to come first, family second. This job comes third." And I
yep,
said, "You're my boss telling me that the job is third? Really?" you know, and she was right. And man, I thought a lot about that when COVID hit.
yeah,
Our
yeah, yeah.
family started
That's
coming first
yeah,
or
that's
second.
very very biblical. God calls us. We're of course called to honor Him and to love Him first, and the second is your family, and third is your vocation or ministry, whatever the case may be. But yeah, that's and I think when people get those out of order or confuse that order, that's where you really start having problems within the family.
Yeah, really,
And
because sometimes, there were times I thought I knew more than God. And I found out
yeah,
I found out really
yeah,
fast I did not know more than
yeah,
God.
yeah, yeah. I've been there where I've questioned things too, and thankfully God has a lot of grace, and
Oh, I'm glad he
still guides me
does.
where I need to go. Yeah.
I'm his problem child too. so, so yeah, you
Yeah.
have to just sit back and listen and take it all in. Let's talk to young folks who have, or they're just thinking about the music world. I've got a song, I'm writing songs, and I'm going to get it out there. If you could make three suggestions to folks who are just, and it could be older. Bonnie Raitt didn't get started until what she was in her 40s or 50s, something like that. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
late
Yeah.
bloomers out there. So let's talk to some folks who are just getting into the music business. What would you suggest, because you're successful, what would you suggest folks do to get started?
If we're talking singer songwriter, um, and first of all, if you sing and you do have the ability to write, I think that's the best chance you can have at being successful is if you're recording your own music. Um, because of royalties and when you record somebody else's songs, it can really get really expensive.
Yeah.
So if the person that is wanting to get into the music business is a singer and a songwriter, that is one huge way to help yourself be successful. If you're able to do that, or people who maybe are just into songwriting, um, that's all about networking, making contacts, um, depending upon the genre, that you're in. But um, technology now has helped that a lot as well because there's groups that you can get involved with on social media that have
Mhm.
songwriters in them, and you make all kind of contacts in those groups and meet with other people. So that's always key with songwriting. Songwriting classes to learn how to write us. Sometimes we get lyrics or you hear things, but you may not know how to put those lyrics down effectively with things like syllable counts, or rhyming patterns, but there's classes you can take for that, to improve. And I think we should always be trying to improve whatever craft we're doing.
I do too.
So I would strongly encourage some kind of a songwriting class for songwriters. And then, of course, there's people who just sing and they don't write. And of course, I've been there as well. So, for when you're in situations like that, if you're looking to make an album, then you can also join those same groups, even if you don't write, because you're being exposed to songwriters and you're still making those connections with people, who may have material that you can go through and listen to and record. But technology has absolutely transformed the music industry, in my opinion. Now it's so much easier to have songs recorded, have songs mastered. It's a lot less expensive than what it used to be.
Mhm.
You no longer need a record label if you want to send a song out to digital platforms, or if you want to send a song out to radio. Just about everything now can be done independently. So that makes it a lot easier for people to try to get going in the industry, I think.
Oh yeah, it makes it a lot more affordable too, because I
Yeah.
mean you can go broke if you're not careful
Oh yeah.
if you didn't have
Yeah.
all these great
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. You could still go broke, with it, of course, but but because it is music is not it's not cheap. You have to put the money out to get the product out, of course. Um, and then quality for the people who are going to sing and record. Quality is extremely important because if the recording, if your music doesn't sound quality, then people are just not they're not going to want to hear it. Um, so you want to make that impression that it's good quality music. So I would also stress that quality is very, very important.
Absolutely. I grew up in the days of the 1970s, 60s, and 70s, and we had records, full
Mm-hmm.
45s, and then the albums and all that. So kids always want to go the opposite of whatever their parents are. So I'm hearing vinyl is back.
Oh yeah, yeah, vinyl is. That's kind of caught back up. Now I'm a vinyl collector.
Hmm.
But when I grew up, well, really the '80s were more my growing up years. But my dad always kept a record player, and so I grew up listening to records, and still love them, and I still collect them now. Um, so yeah, so I've always loved vinyl, but vinyl has kind of caught back on. A lot of the artists currently are releasing vinyl. Vinyl's more expensive um, to put your album out on,
Hmm.
and so but yeah, it's I would love to have one eventually. I'm going to try to get some vinyl out at some point. Um, Probably won't be this project because of the extra expense, but I would love to do it. It seems to really be back in trend now for
Oh
artists.
yeah, I really like it, and there's just something about a record album, because of course
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in the day. But I'll tell you something I never liked was 8-track tapes. So you probably don't even know what I'm talking about.
Well, I remember an
Jimmy is
eight-track
an
tape in
eight
my
track
dad's car.
tape.
Yeah, well, when I was, it was really cassette by the time I was, for most of my memories from growing up. But I do remember an eight-track player in my dad's car.
Oh,
Um,
those were horrible. I mean,
yeah.
and I had a huge collection because I've loved music my entire life, and so I had it's like it took up the entire back of my car. Here I am, a teenager driving around. Mostly, you'd have to take all that stuff out to get extra kids in the car with me. You know,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
and they were really. I'll put it to you this way: we were moving back from Charlotte, North Carolina, back home to Geraldine a few years ago. A daughter-in-law comes into the garage helping me with some boxes, and she goes, "What are these?" I said, "Get lost." So they were terrible. But I'll tell you, my husband sings, he's a singer. And he and his sister used to sing years and years ago. And so I kind of bummed around with him. She moved to Mississippi. So I kind of bummed around with him just a little bit and sang some background for him. But I'll tell you what I hated with the cassette tapes with the background music. And it never failed. So if you left them out in the car too long or
Yeah.
not,
They're warped. Yeah. Yeah.
or somebody would say, "Can y'all sing that again?" And then we'd have to rewind the thing all the
Rewind
way
it. Yep.
back. Be kind and rewind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I love technology. I just love what absolutely what it's done.
Well,
So yeah,
most cars now, most new cars, they don't even come with CD players or anything anymore. Just the USB port for the digital music off your phones.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I mean, that's changed a lot.
Yeah, and I'm old enough to remember. I'm so much older. You could be my kid. So what, what I remember back in the day is when my dad bought a car one time and had to pay extra to have actually a radio, and then later a CD player. You had to pay extra to have that in your car. And
Oh
so I
wow.
think
Yeah.
we're back to that again. I guess where if that's what you want, you got to pay extra for it.
Yeah. It's not coming standard anymore in the newer cars. From my sister had recently purchased a car and she couldn't find anything that had the CD players in them that just came that way
Hmm.
from the factory. So
Yeah,
yeah, but
craziness,
mhm.
crazy. So now, how would you describe your style of
uh,
singing?
of singing the music itself or
Hmm.
traditional country, '90s country.
Hmm.
Um, that I think '90s country would be pretty accurate. '90s country with Christian lyrics.
Hmm. It's
Um,
good. So if you've
Thank
never
you.
heard this guy, you got to check it out. It's really good. And again, he's being requested a lot. So that as well. So do you think music changes for the good, or I mean, how do we adapt to change?
I'm really not that. I'm not a big change guy. I still like 80s pop. So, um, but I think
Well, I'm
everybody,
still
and
into the Bee Gees from the 70s.
I was going to say, I think depending upon the generation you're in, most people probably still prefer the music that they grew up with. But I do think overall, I think in general, music, some music trends are for the better. I don't think they all are. I prefer the 90s country sound. Obviously, that's what I do. And, I like some of the newer stuff, some of the newer country, but there's a lot of it that I don't really care for. Um, and then some of the changes where, we've progressed to where there are things that you used to wouldn't have heard in a song that wouldn't have been allowed on the radio, lyrics that aren't, completely family friendly. And, that's not a change for the better, in my opinion. Um, so I think some changes can be positive, and of course, there's other changes that are not as good.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, change is a part of life, so it's something that we have to adapt to and deal with.
You
As
got to
far
be
as how
quick
to
to
deal with
adapt.
it, wow, how to deal with it can be kind of tricky. The key for me on dealing with any kind of change in my life is prayer. Praying, asking God to show me how I need to deal with it, or what I need to do as far as that situation
Mhm.
goes. I think that's critical.
What do you say to the person who says, "Well, I'm not going to try YouTube or I'm not going to try Zoom. I'm afraid I'll fail." What would you say to that person?
Well, I was telling you earlier, this is my first time using Zoom. Because right now
Well, you're
I had
doing
used Google
good.
Duo. Thank you, but I'd heard of Zoom, of course. I've never had a reason to use it.
Mhm.
So you know, I I think if we're not willing to try new things, things can get kind of stale. I mean, I want to keep growing and and learning. And there's a lot of things that you can listen to or watch on YouTube that are Christian. And so I think for people who aren't willing to try, I think they're going to miss out on being able to see or hear, a lot of things that they may enjoy or that may minister to them or speak to them.
Well, one thing that a lot of folks, and it's obvious, I'm not afraid of it, but is making a mistake.
Yeah.
But you can make a mistake. I think people are tired of fake stuff. I think that they want to
Hmm.
see real. They want to see, well, okay, you stumbled, so how did you fix it?
Right.
I think that's a good thing there.
I I agree. I absolutely agree. I think that's key. I think when you're talking about people, I think our nation as a whole, I think seeing things that are genuine and real, I really believe that's where we are, at the moment. Um, and of course, I mean, not to get in too far into politics, but with a lot of things that are going on right now, and I think we need that. So
Yeah.
there's a lot going on in the world that's pretty scary. My youngest son is in the army, and he's getting deployed soon because of the Russia Ukraine war,
Mm.
and so his unit's being sent over. There's we got a lot going on, and our country needs prayer, our military needs prayer. Um, yeah, things can be kind of scary, and for people that don't have a relationship with Christ, or that don't believe in God, I have no idea how they deal with
I,
any of it.
I don't know how you deal with it. To
I don't
not
either.
know that there's something better. It's going to be,
Hmm.
this is a practice run for all of us.
Yeah, yeah. Without hope, we all need hope.
Mhm.
So for people that don't know Christ, I don't know how they deal with any of the things that are going on in the world or in their own life, for that matter.
I've been a big study. I love history. And that was
I do
one
too.
thing you could always depend on me to make good grades in history because I loved it. And what you love, you're going to excel in anyway.
Hmm.
But I remember we were learning. I don't know if this is even being taught in school anymore, but about the Depression.
Hmm.
And people had these really good jobs, and they were jumping off skyscrapers because they couldn't see it, an end. All they could see is an end. They couldn't see a future out there. What do you want to say to those? Because it does look kind of scary right now. And
It
what would you
does.
say to the person who has no hope?
I would say that it doesn't matter where we are, what we've done, what we've been through, or what we're facing. God is there. He's waiting on us. He loves us. He has his arms stretched out, waiting for us. Um, I know there's a lot of people that deal with hopelessness, that deal with depression, and things may look really bad now, but one thing that we know is going to happen is change. The Bible says, and it came to pass. And the fact is, most things in life come to pass. Everything's going to pass. Things change. And while the situation may be dark and bleak right now, there's always hope, especially in Christ. There's always hope, for tomorrow. And He loves us. He's whatever they're dealing with, He's waiting on them, to bring that to Him, and He's there. There is absolutely hope for tomorrow, especially in Jesus.
I think so too. There's been a lot of times in my life I thought, well, this is the end of me. I'm ruined.
Yeah.
And then I've looked back thinking if God had answered that particular prayer that I had, I'd have been in a mess.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah. It's like the Garth Brooks songs about unanswered prayers.
Oh, that should be my tagline.
Yeah. Sometimes the prayer not being answered, things not getting what we want is actually a blessing. Because God sees from, past the point that we're at in that moment, and the things that we want may not be what's best for us. So yeah, absolutely. So I think people may think a prayer is going unanswered, but the answer to that prayer may be to not get it because it's not good for them.
Well, and then sometimes you think about, I had a job opportunity one time. I could have been in New York, Times Square, all that kind of stuff. A lot of income it really would have, but somehow I couldn't get excited about it. I don't know why. All my friends were saying, "Are you crazy? You know what you've got here? This is just you're insane not to take this job." All I could think about was my son, who was about 14 years old, teenager, and all I could think about is, do I want to raise him in New York City? That's all I could think about. No, we're used to the nice country sunshine, and there, and teachers that during that time wouldn't mind, like, giving you a little whipping if you needed it. And so all I could think of is raising him in a liberal atmosphere. I couldn't see it. And I really think about, I'm glad I didn't take that job. Things could have happened. He could have got in with the wrong crowd. I could not have him right now at 43 years old, so and that's of course I kept kicking myself later thinking, are you crazy yourself? But I'm so glad. Sometimes what looks really nice and enticing is not nice at all.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, just let me mention this. It really surprises me that your son is 43. You don't look old enough to have somebody 43.
You're my new best friend in the world.
That really surprises me.
Oh yeah. Thank you. I'm lucky to be here. I'm 63. I'm just lucky to be here. I shouldn't be by some of the crazy mistakes I've made before. So thank you, Jesus, for giving me chances. I mean, He is really, really a God of chances. We've got about a minute left in this segment. I just looked, saw what time it is. How can folks find your music besides listening to IC Radio?
Well, first, IC Radio. I listen to IC Radio a lot. Matter of fact, so I was familiar with how to request because I listen to the station. So I enjoy it. I've shared the station before on my Facebook page, but beyond IC Radio, for people that want to hear it, it's on all digital platforms like Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Amazon. And quickly, I don't understand why there is a Apple and an iTunes, but I don't get that, but there is. And or JimmyRenoMusic.com, which is JimmyReno music.com.
Thank you, Jimmy.
That's
and
the
thank
best
you so
way.
much for being on the show today. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, thank you for having me.
We got to do this a lot. Two techies get together. Yes. It's got to be fun.
Yes.
And it wasn't a boring show.
Hopefully not.
No. Thank you, Jimmy, for being on the show. And you guys make sure you listen to his music.